Everybody from the 313, get your woke hands up and follow me. Now he stands tough, and notice that this man did not have his hands up. People have been calling Ruslan the evangelical Eminem. You know, he's a B-Rabbit. B-Rabbit, this is the turtle race. Oh, man, let's jump into this today. The reason I'm talking about B-Rabbit is because if you remember in that movie, well, not only is Ruslan a white rapper, I'm a dope rapper, he also tries to flip the script here. And that's where that flip the script, that was a big line in Eminem. What's his name? Future tells him to flip the script, you know, because B-Rabbit be choking all the time. You know how it goes. But anyway, happy Memorial Day. I'm having a great time. I'm in a great mood, and it's a little bit cold today. You know, I think it's cold pretty much everywhere in the country right now, which is a little bit weird. But I got a Bud Light, and I'm ready to just enjoy life. So let's just do this, because this is where Ruslan tries to flip the script. If you remember where we left off, he was trying to make it seem like the only reason this conversation was happening was because Ruslan was humble enough to go stoop down to Marcus's level, because Marcus and us and all the non-woke people, we're just big jerks, and like we started all the aggressive rhetoric and stuff like that. He's trying to change reality. This is a wizard spell, because what a wizard does is a wizard doesn't really do anything. Like, he doesn't have any real power. But what he does do is he distracts you and tries to get you, he basically gaslights you. He tries to change the reality of the situation just through a bunch of smoke and mirrors and flash, like the Wizard of Oz. But let's just listen to Ruslan, because I found this wizard spell particularly hilarious. This is where he tries to flip the script, y'all. B-Rabbit, this is the turtle race.
That are friendly and like we disagree and you know,
but you know the path to have those conversations, though, right? They have to be charitable. There has to be rapport.
Were we not charitable?
We were charitable in this conversation, right? But I had to first say, hey, bro, I'm not a Marxist, nor do I like the conclusions of CRT that says all white people are evil, nor do I, you know what I mean? Like, I had to first like show my cards instead of saying, hey, you're a brother in Christ. We may disagree on sociology or critical race theory or whatever, but let's be charitable and have these conversations. I'm going to believe the best about you. You're going to believe the best about me.
So
right?
This is the scam, right? This is a total scam. So there's a couple scams in here. So the first one is he changes reality, right? Because what he makes it seem like is that all these woke church advocates were just minding their own business and just loving on people, you know, and leaning in and all that kind of stuff, and not really doing anything wrong. They were just as pure as the driven snow. And then out of nowhere, we were just like, you're a racist, you're a Marxist, you're a cultural Marxist, you're a social justice warrior. That's actually not what happened. Like, that's a fantasy, right? That's a fabrication. What actually happened was, you guys started calling every white person and their mother racist, right? I'm scared to worship with white people. That was Jamar Tisby's famous article. I'm scared to worship with white people. I just don't feel safe. He's like Lysol in that one Dave Chappelle sketch. Well, I don't feel safe with you, man. I don't feel safe with you. Like obviously that was insane. So we kept getting called racist. We kept getting called white supremacists. We kept getting called all these pejoratives. And you guys know this is how it went down, right? And so then we were like, hey, you know, like, I'm not a racist. Like, I'm not so sure about this white supremacy stuff and this whiteness stuff. Like, can we talk about this? And we talked, then we asked for conversations. Let's talk it out. Let's hash it out. And what we got in return was, you're a racist, man. I'm not going to talk to a racist. I'm not going to waste my time. In fact, Jamar Tisby wrote articles about how you shouldn't waste your time trying to talk to non-woke people and stuff like that. And so that's how it went down. We got called racist and bigots and barely even Christian. A lot of us were, Eric Mason strongly implied that we were formal heretics. Like, he was going to remember the Council of Philadelphia that he wanted to set up. He was going to set this council up where all of us non-woke people were going to be heretics. Like, that's how this started. And then we were like, hey, let's talk about it. And you're like, nah, you're a racist. I don't talk to racists. And then that's when we started getting more aggressive. That's the real story. But what Ruslan here is presenting is that we were just innocent. You guys just started calling us Marxists out of nowhere. So that's the first scam, right? That's the first scam. The second scam is, and there's probably more than just two scams here, but the second scam is, he's like, you got to get over yourself, right? Like sometimes people call me names, right? Like racist, for example. And I don't mind putting my cards on the table. Hey, I'm not a racist. There it is. Let's talk about it. I'm not a racist. And Ruslan's making it seem like that's some big burden where it's like, hey, you're a Marxist. And, excuse me. And then it's like a big burden to be like, hey, I'm not a Marxist. Like, that's no big deal. That's totally fine. Put your cards on the table. You're not a Marxist. Let's talk about it, right? That's. He tries to make it seem like that's such a big deal. It's not a big deal. Enough patting yourself on the back for being so humble. It's nothing humble about defending yourself. I mean, sometimes you just got to defend yourself. I mean, just stop making it seem like you're like on the moral high ground here. You're simply not. By the way, my book. I looked and I just double checked because I was, I wrote my book, but I wrote it a while ago. And I've read it a couple times, and I thought there was a very good chance that I didn't even mention the word Marxist or socialist even once, and that was by design. And I look back, and I did actually quote someone that used the word Marxist and also the word socialist. I used a couple times, twice in the entire book, and that's by design because I understand that people like Ruslan, they don't consider themselves Marxists or socialists, and to be honest, I don't even care. I know that they are socialists. I get that. But I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care what you call it. What I just care about is that it's not biblical. And so my book focuses on the fact that it's not biblical, and it brings Bible verses to bear upon their errant teachings. So whether they call it Marxist or cultural Marxist or socialist, whatever they call it, I don't actually care what they call it because that's not the interesting part to me. The interesting part to me is how it contradicts the Bible. And so this book that I wrote, Social Justice Pharisees, Woke Church Tactics and How to Engage Them, it'll be very helpful to use, especially on weasels like Ruslan who don't use those words, socialist, Marxist, stuff like that, but they do have those tendencies. I think that's a very important thing that you should be ready to address because they're rarely going to own what they actually are or even the tendencies that they have. So anyway, if you want to purchase one of those books, ad@adrobles.com or on eBay.
Again, so when you see a Dr. Eric Mason on my channel, I've been to his Acts 29 church plant in Philly, seen the ministry they do on the front lines, seen him teach the gospel, nailing it on the essentials. And I consistently see him dismissed, rejected, guys that agree with him theologically, right, guys that are covenantal theology,
right,
Calvinists.
But I think too,
this is a B Rabbit way of saying he's got a track record of ministry. How often have we heard that, right? How could you come against him in this article? He's got a track record of gospel faithful ministry. And it's like, but like that's also a scam. It's like, sure, you can be right on a lot of things and really, really wrong and divisive on just a handful of things, and we should still be correcting you on those handful of things. In fact, the Bible says that we ought to, if we're going to love our neighbor as ourselves, the Bible says, earnestly contend with your neighbor. You should not just let your neighbor stay in his sin and the sin he's teaching and stuff like that. Like, just because you have a track record of ministry doesn't mean that everything you teach is correct. And so we owe it to you, unless we hate you, to tell you where you're incorrect. And so, yes, you're going to be rejected, Eric Mason, for teaching errant theology when it comes to race and justice. I mean, why wouldn't you be? If I was teaching errantly on race and justice, I should be rejected for that teaching, right? Like, why wouldn't that teaching be rejected? And so, it's so weird when people use this argument. It's like, okay, track record of ministry, fine. Let me just assume that everything you're saying is true. What has that got to do with the fact that I'm coming against his errant teaching on reparations and Angloids and all this other stuff? Like, that doesn't make it okay, right? Like, what's the deal with this argument? It is such a sophomoric, another way of saying childish, argument.
I think too, and I think there is sort of.
Now, as he stands tough.
One, I know that
this man did not have
personal
his hands
invites
up.
have been sent to Dr. Mason, and he's rejected them for private conversations, all expense paid, all these sort of things. So I don't exactly entirely agree that you got to be charitable. I think that
you have to be charitable, but you don't have to be stupid and naive. Like, being charitable with Eric Mason is understanding that he's a racist. He's preached racism from the pulpit, and like that's charitable. You know what I mean? And the charitable thing is, I'm assuming he fights it on the inside, but he does a terrible job. And in fact, he disqualifies himself when he preaches racism from the pulpit. That's charitable. The uncharitable would be, oh, he's just a complete heretic, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he does it anyway, and he doesn't even try to fight it. Very few people say that. Now, I happen to think that Eric Mason's not a believer, but the thing is, like, that doesn't being charitable doesn't mean that you believe non-truths about the other person. Yes, you should believe the best about another person, but that doesn't mean you believe lies about them. And to say that Eric Mason's not a racist would be a lie about Eric Mason. Being charitable does not contradict that.
Part of me, like, I know if somebody's slandering me, like if somebody's talking, whatever,
Look
lying
how
about me,
King
whatever.
Ginger's hair looks right now.
I want to just,
dude,
let's have the conversation. Let's fight it out. I'm a grown man.
He is a grown
we can
man,
have that.
true.
We can have those conversations. If
But he's a
I'm
big
wrong,
ginger. He's King
like I
Ginger.
said,
Yeah.
like you said on my Facebook page.
I don't know why his hair
that
looks
you
so
didn't
red right now.
Believe that you were CRT or social justice or whatever. And I was like, well, let's just come on the show, man. Let's have the conversation. Like, that's
Really
playing the
is
man.
King Ginger.
And I think a lot of these guys.
But you understand that I'm in a completely different season of life with way less responsibility than a Dr. Eric Mason.
Well,
like you can't take me being willing to like take one on the chin.
No, Eric Mason isn't going to come on my show. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, like, Vadi and Eric Mason that'd be such a great that's pay-per-view.
There's a lot of people behind the scenes trying to make that happen.
I really hope it does, man.
There's a lot of people.
I really hope.
I've been rebuked a couple times, and I think there might be some truth to this behind the scenes, because I said in the last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, that I don't care if this conversation happens or not. In fact, I would never have a conversation with these woke church advocates. That's what I said. And I'm squishy on that. I'll be honest. I'm squishy on that. If Washington Post or a pagan outlet came and wanted to get my thoughts on the woke church stuff, I did an interview once with a lady from Washington Post, and she did an op-ed and mentioned me and Walter Strickland and stuff. But if that happened again, I would definitely turn them down. I tell them to go pound sand. I'm not interested in trying to help the pagans sell any more newspapers on this controversy. So that I am inflexible on. But if a professed Christian wanted to have a conversation, I said that I wouldn't talk to Ruslan. I don't know if that's true. I think maybe I would. I'm willing. I got rebuked on that a few times. Like, I should be willing to talk to him if that were the case. Not that he's ever asked, and I don't think he would ever talk to me. I don't think Ruslan's trying to take that one on the chin, if you know what I mean, because he knows how terrible that conversation would go. But if he did, I probably would talk to him, and definitely privately. If he wanted to do something public and make a spectacle out of it, I'm open to that as well. Because, that's true. I should, if I'm going to love my neighbor, if I'm going to love my brother, someone who's a professed Christian, I ought to be able to contend with him. That's a biblical concept. For those of you who have rebuked me behind the scenes on that position that I took, you were right. I was wrong. I would talk to him. Now, that doesn't mean I would talk to him without any input from my side. Like, I'm not going to go on their terms and have a conversation. It's going to be on my terms. You know what I mean? Because in this woke church fight, strategically, we've got all of the power here. We've got all the momentum. This is the reality. Like, the woke church is backed into a corner, and I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to give up that advantage. There's just no question about it. So I would go on Ruslan's show, but it would be a dual show. It would be something that I would be able to have the masters of as well and do with it what I please as well. I remember when I talked to KB and Amin, they made me agree that I would never use a clip from the video of the conversation, like out of context. Like, I'd only be able to post the whole thing. I agreed to it at the time, but like, I wouldn't agree to that again. I'm gonna use the clips to for my purposes. There's just no question about it. I don't know why that I've never forced anyone to agree to that. Like, I just don't understand. Like, anyway. But yeah, for those of you who have rebuked me on that, I would have a conversation with these guys, and that would be amazing.
Because
there's a lot of people trying to get big universities
but
behind
the reality
it.
is that Eric Mason and Vodi Bakum are not even in the same weight class. You know what I mean? They're not in the same category when it comes to quality of theologian. Vodi Bakum is just light years ahead of Eric Mason when it comes to this. It would be an effective conversation, though, in the sense that sometimes the bully needs to be hit in the mouth to be exposed that they actually aren't all that. Like, I've told this story before. My brother, he used to sit at the nerd table at lunch, and there were these bullies that used to throw French fries at him. And they used to put ketchup on them and throw the French fries. And one day my brother just had enough. He stood up and he screamed. Everyone at the lunchroom was looking at him. He was like, "That's enough! If you do it one more time, like you're gonna feel the wrath," like something like that. And they never did it again. Not only did they never do it again to him and his buddies, they never did it again, period, because they were exposed. He called them out and they shrunk back. He said, "Let's go. We'll fight right now." They didn't say another word. They cowered in fear because they were sissies, but they had taken the stance of a bully. There was nothing back there. They had no backbone. They were all hat and no cattle. And that's how Eric Mason is. He talks a big game, and he screams and yells like a lunatic when he's preaching to a friendly audience. But when it comes to Vodi Bakum, Vodi wouldn't have to do all that much to completely destroy him, his arguments anyway. And he doesn't want to be exposed like that. So in the sense, like, it wouldn't be that interesting in the sense as it wouldn't be like a good fight. But sometimes you need that bully to get hit in the mouth, metaphorically speaking, so everybody knows that he ain't got nothing.
I mean, like, I know Vodi just had open heart surgery, so I don't know how long it would be.
Yeah, respect, and I'm
praying for his recovery. But I would hope that upon full recovery,
that'd be like B Rabbit versus Papa Doc.
That I think it would just be like let's just hash it out, man. Like, let's just come together. Let's just hash it out. Like, let's fight. Like, we're men. Men fight. Like, it's okay. We can chop it up at the end of the day.
Hey, nobody wants a piece of King Ginger. I mean, look at that face. This is the kind of guy that back in the old days, listen, I'm not racist or nothing, but back in the old days in Scotland or Ireland, wherever he's from, these are those guys that used to paint war paint on themselves, and they get you, man. They went medieval on you. That's the kind of guy King Ginger is,
And I agree with you. I'm saying that should start from some degree of, hey, I don't think you want to destroy America. You don't think I want to destroy America. I don't think you have ill intent. I don't have ill intent. We can disagree on some of these things. You asked me about Andrew Yang, and I was like, yeah, I don't think that was a great idea in hindsight. Like, I'm willing to change my mind on stuff. You're presenting this post-millennial, almost like this Christian utopia idea, which I'm like, dude, that's freaking sounds rad. I'm not opposed to that.
So
I don't know.
The thing, like this is another scam. Like, there's nothing in the rule books of having an argument or having a debate that requires me to accept you and your positions before we start. Like, that's what he's trying to do. Do you remember James White when he wanted to debate Matthew Vines, but Matthew Vines said, unless you agree that we're brothers in Christ and gay Christianity is legitimate, then I won't debate you. It's like, no, I'm not going to give up the debate in order to debate you. So, like, there's nothing in the etiquette that forces me to agree that Eric Mason is not a bad actor before I debate him, right? I think Eric Mason's a bad actor. You know what I mean? Ruslan's a different story. I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he's supremely confused, right? And I think he's a little weaselly because he's got a tribe and he's going to defend that tribe to the death. And he's been mistaught all along the way and all that kind of thing. That's what I think Ruslan is. He's a bit of a tragic figure, in my opinion. But I reserve the right to make those judgments. Of course I do. Of course, Jamar Tisby's a bad actor. I'd debate Jamar Tisby, but I'm not going to agree that he's a believer if I don't believe he's a believer. Like, what is this thing where we have to, like, lay down our weapons before we fight? King Ginger's over here. He's like, nah, we're gonna. I don't know what your ethnicity is, King Ginger, but you're Ginger, so maybe you're Scottish, mate. Like we want to go to war, right? We got our weapons, we got our war paint on, and we're not gonna lay our weapons down before the fight. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure someone could poke holes in all of that, but that sounds cool. But I think it starts with saying, hey, let's have conversation. Let's be charitable. Let's be private. Let's be willing to listen, be quick to listen, slow to speak. And I'm just saying, I don't see a lot of that happening to my friends.
Ruslan, then you're just not looking. That's the truth. This is in all seriousness. I like to have a good time. I like to joke. If you haven't seen that, Ruslan, then you're just not looking. Because, people like me spent a year, more, even to this day, asking for these conversations privately. Let's talk about it. Let's hash it out. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it was just either crickets or, no, I don't talk to racists. You're a bigot. You're a white supremacist, and all that kind of thing. And so, Ruslan, with all due respect, this is a wizard spell. We all know how reality really was. We all know how it actually happened. No amount of wizardry. I don't care how good your lighting is or how rad your camera work is. It's not going to change what actually happened. So if you're not seeing what you just described, you simply aren't looking.
To my friends who've been consistent in all these views. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, my thought is this. If someone like Vadi or whatever believes Mason or, whether it's Mason or Bradley or Tisby, whatever, if he believes that they're Marxist, and he needs to warn people that they're Marxists, he should absolutely call them out for doing that. However, I think that playing the man would say, hey, I'm not this. Let's have that conversation. I'll explain why, and we'll have that meeting, whether in private or in person or public. It doesn't matter.
Do you think they're Marxist? Do you think I'm a Marxist?
I think you have Marxist tendencies. Yeah, for sure. I think I think the third option, that video right there, is a clear example of pure Marxism. You want government? You want government?
So Ruslan is very happy because he thinks he has him in the trap, and he kind of does, because this is a trap, guys. Like, this is why my book doesn't even mention Marxism except for one time, and I'm quoting somebody else in that. In fact, I think I'm quoting Tim Keller when I mentioned Marxism. Because it's a trap, right? Because Ruslan can play the definition game. Is socialism, which is like, public schools, public health care, public, safety nets, welfare, all that, is socialism Marxism? Well, there's a lot of overlap, but it's not technically Marxism. Marxism has some extra stuff. The differences are very small, in my opinion, but they're just too squishy, and it's easy to debate it. And you can always go, fall back on the definitions and prove the other person wrong. Don't fall into this trap. To me, it doesn't really even matter if it's Marxism or not. It's just, is it biblical? That's what I focus on. That's what I try to do my content on. In fact, my content very rarely uses the word Marxism in general, and all that. But this is a trap. But it's funny because Ruslan, I think, traps himself in a little bit. Let's just keep watching.
Schools, man, that's Marxism.
Government schools.
It's one of those things where it's like, every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. It's the same thing with this. It's like every Marxist is socialist, but not every socialist is a Marxist. Take that to the bank. Remember that.
Is Marxism
100%? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I know you think that. Look, I know you think the Frankfurt School is a conspiracy theory, but it's really
it is a conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy theory.
Let's just say it's true. So any involvement of government is Marxism to you?
No, any involvement of government that is not terrorizing those who do evil, I would say,
is Marxism to you. Yeah. Okay, do you think that's how Marx would describe Marxism?
Okay, so this is where Ruslan springs the trap, and I think Marcus is kind of laughing here because he kind of sees this, because. Is this what Marx would describe Marxism as? No, that's not what Marx would describe Marxism as. That's true. And so that's why I don't even worry about this stuff. I don't even get involved in this kind of conversation typically unless it's a friend. I don't care if it's Marxism or not. Your ideas are unbiblical. They're evil. They're not godly. They're not just. They're not good. You have no moral high ground when you promote them. You are actually promoting sin when you promote them. Let's just leave it at that. Whether you're a Marxist, whether it's Karl Marx's definition, whether it's another definition, I don't care. So this is where Ruslan sprung the trap. That's not Marxism, because Marx wouldn't have said that. But then Ruslan, because he's a little overzealous and he's just too excited that he sprung the trap, then he actually traps himself. Watch.
You can't change the definition of Marxism and say any involvement of government that's not terrorizing evil is Marxism.
Maybe be more clear.
That's hogwash, man. But okay, so socialism is Marxism.
Yeah. Okay, so Marcus corrects himself. He says, I should be more clear. It's socialism. And that's definitely true. All those things that he mentioned, public schools, public health care, welfare, that's all socialism. There's no question about that. There's no debating it. That's socialism. All those are socialist policies, right? And so we can understand that an economy can be a mixed economy where it can be partly socialist, partly not, but they're all socialist ideas. So Marcus corrected himself. Good on him. And this is where Ruslan gets a little overzealous, right? Here we go. This is going to be funny.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Okay,
I think there's
is that what Marxism is to Marxist?
What?
Is that what Marxism is to Marxist?
Well,
like actual trained Marxists, like actual the Black Lives Matter, disrupt the nuclear family.
Well, they do want socialism for sure. I would say they probably want communism.
They want communism and Marxism. That is not what.
Right. So here's where he messed up. B Rabbit done messed up because they want communism and Marxism. That's true, but they also definitely want socialism because every Marxist is a socialist. So every socialist policy, the Marxists want that as well. And so he messed up. He went too far. Yes, it's true that you can't define Marxism however you want and get away with it. Marcus was bad on that. He corrected himself, but then Ruslan fell into his own trap because the Black Lives Matter people are definitely socialists, and they want all the socialist policies. Now, they want extra stuff too, and that makes it extra bad, but even if they didn't want that extra stuff, every Christian ought to oppose them. Even if they didn't want that stuff, every Christian ought to oppose their socialism because socialism is antichrist. Socialism is demonic. Socialism is from the synagogue of Satan. That's what they teach it, in the synagogue of Satan. So that's the reality. It doesn't. Marxism is worse, in my opinion, but they're both bad.
I nor Eric Mason nor Sho Baraka nor Lecrae is propagating, and at least
you're propagating all that socialist stuff. You are all doing it, and even you, Ruslan.
But they're endorsing the people that want
I'm endorsing Major Williams. Okay, I'm not endorsing.
I didn't say you. I said Lecrae.
So I don't know who
Lecrae endorsed the Marxist pro-abortion.
Lecrae was at the Warnock thing, and I told him and I made a video saying he shouldn't have. Right? If you listen to the majority of what I'm preaching on my channel, what my actual solutions is, hey, build useful skills, make yourself useful, build useful skills, lead your family, pick a healthy.
Ruslan, are you saying that socialists don't want people to build useful skills? Ruslan, would you say a socialist would define himself as not making themselves useful? Ruslan, like, do you think socialists would define socialism that? We see, Tube can play this stupid definition game, right? It's a stupid game. Anyone can play it. But that's the point. Like, it's like every socialist, talks a big game about about making a business and doing this stuff and all. But okay, so you have some capitalist tendencies, Ruslan, but you have a lot of socialist tendencies too. Do I care if you have enough to call you a pure socialist? No, I don't care. I just care that you no longer believe any socialism. Because it's all bad. It's all evil. You can't. You're not graded on a scale here.
Spouse, get out of debt, build a business.
Would you say, Ruslan, that all socialists would define themselves as not finding a good spouse? You see, it's a stupid game.
Look,
that's
man,
what I'm talking about.
I think government schools are Marxist, so anyone that supports it, that's. Okay,
but well, then you changed the definition of Marxism.
All right, we're going to pause there. I think my kids need me, and we'll come back to this and hopefully finish it next time. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.